Hi there, it's Stephen Thomas with Reports on Housing, and our annual forecast is here. It's the 2025 housing forecast. We're going to be forecasting not only Southern California, but the United States for the housing market. And first, I wanted to start with a little introduction as to who I am to give a little bit of credibility behind the name and what we do. We are housing analysts, and our company is Reports on Housing. It's your local real estate snapshot. This is all that we do. I have been crunching the numbers as an economist for 20 years now, and I have a quantitative economics and decision sciences major from the University of California, San Diego. I've actually been in the real estate business for 33 years. I'm an Orange County native and Capitol Valley High School grad. I do have 9 kids, and I brought mine. My wife brought hers. I adopted hers. She adopted mine, and we had one. And then our oldest daughter actually had a child, so I have a grandchild. The family just keeps on growing. And we have been all over the press, from the Financial Times of London to the New York Times. I'm only saying all this stuff for credibility, so that people understand where we are coming from. Well, I developed this report actually when I represented buyers and sellers back in the 1990s using my economics degree, trying to show them why a home was not selling as quickly or when homes were selling faster, trying to articulate what was going on for both buyers and sellers based upon data. It's properly set in expectations. And there's strength and power to data, which is why we provide it on an every other week basis for the people that subscribe to our housing reports. We have what we focus on is the supply and demand, and supply is available number of homes to show your buyers today, and demand is a snapshot of the last 30 days of pending sales activity. And from supply and demand, we get the speed of the market. That is the expected market time. How fast is the market going today based upon the changes in supplies and the changes in demand? And those change all the time based upon interest rates, time of year. There's a number of factors that go into it, so we actually see this change quite a bit. And it replaces days on market. Days on market's a whole horrible statistic, which is why we came up with this all the way back in the 1990s. It's just to be able to articulate a difference in the marketplace. And we're all about setting expectations, because expectations is where things are at. If you properly set expectations based upon data, adults can make great decisions. This is not I think it should crash, or here's one market over here that's crashing, or here's a market over here not that's crashing, that is slowing down, and this one's slowing down. We're here to look at the all numbers, all in the economy as well as in what's going on in the marketplace, and it's all done with trend analysis and being able to see numbers for a very long time. And this is what we do. This is what we're trained to do. We're not here banging a drum that, hey, you know what, the market's going to be good forever. And we're also not banging that same drum, which unfortunately many YouTube channels are devoted to, actually talking about crashes, and they're going to go on their 5th year of talking about crashes this coming up year, getting paid handsomely on a monthly basis, but they've been touting crashes and crashes, and they have never materialized because they actually don't forecast where things are going to go. They don't quite understand the underlying economics of everything and what to look for so that they can properly forecast, which is why they have been wrong for as long as they have. And we have reports that dot all over SoCal, Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, and San Diego. And we also have been busy within this last year. We have launched reports in the Bay Area, in Vegas, Phoenix, as well as Ventura. And the most recent report that just came out is called No Detectable Plunge. We're trying to show where we're at right now to what was leading up to the Great Recession, how things just didn't look right prior to the Great Recession, and right now how great the market looks, and we give a myriad of reasons why we're not going to see that repeat of the Great Recession anytime soon. And so go to reportsonhousing.com to subscribe, and you can subscribe. It's $15 per month or $150 per year, and you get a month free if you sign up utilizing our coupon code by going to Reports on Housing of 2025. You do that and you get a free month. I am a nut. I absolutely love looking at everything that has to do with economics and housing economics, and I actually follow a lot of people where they're experts in certain areas. I'm an expert in housing. There are other experts in inflation, other experts in labor. So I like to look what all the experts do together and what they're talking about so that we can meld together a really good understanding of what's going on in the economy and what the implications are for housing. We do have an economic model we follow. It's called a progression model for a reason, because there are constant changes in the economy, and we're very, very data dependent. So as a result, we're watching all the numbers. Now we're going to dive right into a mortgage rate update and what's going on in as far as rates are concerned. This cast of characters, this is the Federal Reserve Board, and they meet in Washington, D.C. around this oval table, and every single person on there is a different Fed president from across the United States. And the head of the Federal Reserve is actually on the right-hand side. That guy is Jerome Powell. Now, Jerome Powell, I like to call him Jerry because I wish I knew him really well so I could have his cell number so we could talk a little bit more and I could show him some of the things that we're seeing so that he can be preview to some of the things that we were thinking, man, we're behind the curve here. And they meet every 6 weeks. They meet every 6 weeks, and then every other meeting, they actually talk about where interest rates are going to go for for the remainder of the year and the following year and even the year after that. But it's every 6 weeks that they meet, and it's every other meeting that they actually talk about rates ongoing. Now, each time that they're telling you whether they're going to keep rates the same or if they're going to go up or down or what they're going to do, but every other one, which comes out to once a quarter, they're telling you where rates are going to go in the future. And the next one coming up is this month, December, and it's actually next week, a very, very important day for understanding where rates are going to go into 2025. And so here's what happened. In June, they met and they said there would be only 5 rate cuts. 5. See, it looks just like that. 5. 5 rate cuts. 1 this year, 4 next year. So they changed their tune. Earlier in the year, they said 3 this year, 4 next, and then they changed it to only 1 this year. And when they came out with this, I thought they're full of beans. There's no way. And as a matter of fact, they came around. By the time they got to July, because they had waited, they noticed that right after July, they met. There was a jobs report that came out and went, we should probably do something soon. And as a matter of fact, then they started talking about and articulating that they were going to be making a rate cut in September. And then in September, another one of those where they not only do cuts, but then they talk about rates are going to go. Now they changed their tune. Now they said 8 rate cuts. 4 this year, 4 next year. And they did the equivalent of 2 in September because they only had 3 meetings left. 2 because they went down 0.5%, and then they went down another 0.25% couple days after the election, and that was the quarter points. Now they've gone down 0.75 of a point, and they have one more time they meet. And based upon current data and everything that's come up with, actually an inflation report came out yesterday on the 11th. What they're saying is that there's going to be a rate cut, most likely a 100% chance next week. So that will be their 4 rate cuts, and then it's a wait and see as to where they go in 2025. We'll have to see how the numbers play out. So that's where they are currently right now. Now, when they do a rate cut, we're talking the federal funds rate. That's a short-term rate. That's an overnight banking rate, how much they charge each other overnight. It's not 30-year mortgages. 30-year mortgages are long-term rates. It's short-term rates. And what's tied to these short-term rates are credit card interest rates, home equity line of credit interest rates, as well as automobile loan interest rates. Now, not 30-year mortgages. Now, I'm going to show you this. This is what the federal funds, they kept the rate flat from July of 2023, when the last time they raised the rates 0.25%, and they kept it flat for 14 months until we got to September of this year. They didn't do anything. They said rates stay the same. This is a very, very important key takeaway, because this is what interest rates did during that flatness. During that flatness, interest rates went all over the place. They went all the way up to 8%. They came all the way down to 6.7%, made their way back up to 7.5% in April of this year. They were stuck above 7% for the first 6 months this year, for most of the year. And then they made their way back down until we got to 6.1% interest rates the day before they cut rates by 0.5% in September, and the week before they cut rates. And so during that time period where it's flat, rates were all over the place. And so 30-year mortgage rates, which is what is is tied to real estate, long-term rates, when the Fed makes a rate cut, the interest rate of the day already has the Fed rate cuts baked into the equation. What they're trying to do, and that's that crystal ball, that crystal ball is them trying to forecast. These are investors trying to forecast where will the Federal Reserve be based upon current data points. And it changes all the time with data. As data comes out, they go, this is what the Federal Reserve is going to do. As things soften or heat up, they are constantly changing their mind as to what the Federal Reserve is going to do. And that's why mortgage rates, because the Fed is so data dependent, are moving around quite a bit according to what's going on with the data. And so this is what happened with interest rates. So I told you the day before interest rates were cut, it was at 6.11%. And you could see that on the day after it actually went up slightly. And it went up a little bit more the second day. And I tried to access the site Mortgage News Daily, which is one of the 2 apps I would download if I was a real estate agent. It's based upon all mortgages, interest rates across the United States with no points. And it's not really tied to a lender. Instead, it just gives you really good data and information. And I tried to access it this on the day that they cut rates by 0.5%. I actually knew that rates were going to rise for the day, but I couldn't access it. I could not access it because everybody and their brother and sister thought that interest rates would fall by 0.5% on the day that the Fed cut rates. But that's not what they did. They actually went up. I knew that they were going up. I wanted to see by how much, but I couldn't access it because everybody is flooding the system all at once because they weren't listening to us. We had told everybody that the interest rates at that day already had that 0.5-point rate cut baked into the equation, and that interest rates might even rise that day, which is what they ended up doing. And you can see where we're at right now is 6.78% interest rates. And in October, interest rates had made their way a full percentage point higher than where it was the day before they cut rates by 0.75 of a point, which was amazing. And this now takes into consideration 0.75 of a point cut, and we're still this was at 6.78% as of today, this morning, December 12th. Now, what's going on is when the overall economic readings come out and they are too hot for the United States, what happens, it shows that the United States is pumping. The U.S. is doing really well. Well, when those numbers come out, interest rates rise. And the reason for that is because investors, they want to play in stocks. They are looking at stocks, not in the long-term stuff, mortgage rates. So when they play on stocks, they're not looking at mortgage rates, and as a result, the rates on interest rates rise. And so, but when the overall economy has readings that are showing a slowing in the economy, we actually see the opposite. We see rates come down. The appetite isn't for the short-term stuff, the stocks. Instead, that's the stuff that's quick. They want the long-term stuff. And investors look at 10-year treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, which are like rates. So just understand that has to do with rates. So what happens is the 10-year treasury is like rates because now the average mortgage holder, the average mortgage is held for 10 years. So it's very similar to 10-year treasuries, which is why investors look at both of them similarly, which is why there's a love affair that goes back with these two that date all the way back to 1971. And which means we're still very, very data dependent. And the biggest data point that the Fed is looking at is actually jobs. That's the most important data point. Last week was the first week of December, and Friday was Jobs Friday. Every first Friday of the month is Jobs Friday. And it's a very, very important day. And that tells us how many jobs were created and what unemployment looks like. And that whole entire week is actually called Jobs Week. They have job openings, they have ADP. There's a number of different releases during the week that talk quite a bit about jobs, and they can all move the market collectively, and especially leading up to Job Friday. So that's the most important. And also something else to look at as far as jobs or initial unemployment claims. I'm recording this on the 12th, and we actually had initial jobless claims go up 12,000 in more additional jobless claims for the week. And that was a unexpected rise. So it's something that we'll continue to watch. It might just be one data point. And everything else is important, but not as important as jobs. Inflation, manufacturing, retail sales, all these different prints have a lot to do with, they can move the market, especially when there's not a lot of data that comes out. But the biggest data movement, the biggest movement that we will see will come in the arena of jobs, because that's what the Federal Reserve is focused on the most. And just so everybody understands, inflation, the genie is back in the bottle. It's because if you look at grocery bills over the last year, they've actually been flat. What people don't understand is they went up quite a bit back in the past, and what people expect across the United States is for the cost of everything to go down. It's not going to go down from here. That $12 margarita that became $15 is not going to go back down to $12. The only way for all prices to go down is for all of a sudden for everybody to stop buying. And then if they stop buying, then prices come down. And then if they stop buying and demand diminishes, now a whole bunch of people need to be laid off. A whole bunch of companies go belly up and have problems. And we'll have a problem that will be worse than the Great Recession and might even rival the Great Depression. It's called a deflationary environment. It's not anything that anybody would be rooting for. So that $12 margarita that went to $15 margarita needs to stay at $15. And that's why economists are saying inflation's back in check. The $12 margarita is not going to 15 to 17. It's staying at 15. So that's what they're referring to as the genie's back in the bottle for inflation. And inflation's not that bad anymore. So now, as far as October is concerned, it was a bad month for rates. It's been the bad month for rates for 3 years in a row. And you could see it this year in October. We got that initial the initial job report on Jobs Friday. That jobs report came out and it said there was supposed to be 150,000 jobs created. And instead, there was over 250,000 jobs created. And when that happens, it shows the economy is too hot. And we had unemployment that was supposed to remain at 4.2, went down to 4.1. Now, when that kind of a report comes out, people are going, uh-oh, the economy is too hot. And that day alone, we had interest rates rise by more than a quarter point. And that is because of this jobs report that came out in October for the month of September. And you can definitely see that in November, we had the Jobs Friday report came out before the election on November 1st, which was a Friday, and it came out with only 12,000 jobs, but it was a big asterisk report. That sounds like, uh-oh, we didn't create that many jobs. But there was really no expectations for this report because it was impacted by the hurricanes and the Boeing strike. So this was a big nothing burger. And when the thing came out, nobody moved on this one report. So we got no change pretty much in interest rates that day. But then in December, last Friday, believe that was the 6th, we actually had another jobs report come out, and that was for the month of November. That was the first Friday in December, and it was a little bit higher than expectations as far as the number of jobs created, but unemployment rose a little bit as well and got back up to 4.2%. So it was kind of like a moot report and really didn't move the market either. So we were hoping that this would come in less than expectations so we could get rates that can come down a little bit further. But unfortunately, you can't articulate where data is going to go. You have to wait and see what happens. And it was another one of those nothing burgers. So there are economic headwinds that are out there. I'm going to get into them really fast. And they're basically that there is this big transition to serious delinquency. This is done by the New York Federal Reserve. And what you see here is actually the bottom right. You could see that is mortgages, equity line of credit, and student loan debt. A transition to serious delinquency, which means they're transitioning to 90 days plus late. There aren't that many people in for that kind of lending avenue, mortgages, HELOCs, and student loans. Instead, credit card debts, you can see that credit card interest rate debt is, and with high interest rates, there's a lot of people that are serious delinquent, and it got better within the last quarter, but still it was elevating like crazy, and it's at a level that is equivalent to the first quarter of 2011, which means a lot of people with credit cards are strapped, as well as automobile loans. They're seeing a wave of people that are transitioning to serious delinquency, and it's at the highest level since the first quarter of 2010. So that's a problem. And you can actually see that in credit card debt. Credit card debt has it has hit another record high, and it continues to balloon over time. It's going up at a higher rate than where it was prior to COVID. And it's escalating. That has a lot to do with prices. It has a lot to do with people placing a lot on plastic. And 37% of all credit card accounts are either maxed out or close to maxed out, and 28% of consumers are still paying off last year's holiday debt. So this is kind of an issue, and it's kind of a headwind that's going to create less spending in 2025, a bit less, which will eat into GDP, and it's just something to watch. It's not anything that we're going into a recession. It's just something that we're continuing to watch in the background. And today's mortgage rates, I'm here to tell you, remember, there's this love affair between 10-year treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, which are rates. So there's this love affair. It goes way back in time, and we're going to talk about 10-year treasuries when and this is taken from CNBC. It's the second app that I would recommend everybody downloading if they're in real estate, because you need to understand that when the 10-year treasuries are up in the green, that means that we're actually going to see higher rates most likely for the day. The higher the rate, the more it's going up. This was, as of today, it was up over 0.5%. And what that meant is that we're going to see a rise in rates, and that is exactly what we got, a rise in rates. And when this is in the red and it's going down, we'll see a big drop in rates. The bigger the number is down. And what we would like to see is a 0.1 down in the red, and that would mean that for the day, we're going to see much more favorable rates. So this is why you go to 10-year treasuries. And these are interest rates. They closely mirror each other. If you see the trajectory and the way that this looks, you can actually see that it looks very, very similar to this. And this is taken from Mortgage News Daily. It was at 6.8% as of this morning. I believe it's at 6.89% today. It went up quite a bit, like I said, for not a very great reason, but it went up nonetheless for the day. And this shows you the spread over time. And what you need to get out of this is that there is a spread. That average spread is the blue line to the red line. The blue line are 10-year treasuries. The red line are 30-year mortgage rates, according to Freddie Mac's mortgage market survey with 1 point. And that's the average spread is 1.75. You could see it in the middle. Now, on the very end of this, you could actually see that the spread is a lot larger than it normally is. And as a matter of fact, if the spread was normal, that 1.75, we would have interest rates at 6.05% today. So we'd be right at 6%, knocking on the door of going below 6 into the 5s. But if we were at the spread of last November of 2023, the spread was even larger. And in 2023, the spread was pretty big. And it got to 7.25%. We would be at 7.25% today rather than at 6.8%, like I was talking about. So we're not where we were in November of 2023, but we're not where the spread needs to go, which means over time, we're going to see us float down to that 6% level, which will do a lot for the housing market. Now, we've been stuck above 7%. Pretty much the first half of the year was stuck above 7. And you could see this from February on until July, it was pretty stuck above 7. And it was permanently stuck from April all the way to mid-July during our summer and spring markets, where it was above 7%. And 7 really freezes the market. It freezes the amount of buyers in the marketplace that can even afford, and it freezes the number of homeowners that will come onto the market. So it really just slows things down. And it matched up during our spring and summer markets, which is not good, which is why this market this year was slower than it certainly could have been. And we got below 6% with duration, but it didn't happen until we got to the second half of July, and it finally got nice and low below 6.5% for 42 days, but that didn't happen until like practically September. So by then we're in the fall market, way too late. So it matched up during the wrong time of the year. So yes, this created more demand, but it juiced demand during the wrong time of the year when not a lot of people were playing. And now since then it went above 7, now it's come down a little bit below 6. And below 7. So we're in the high 6s. And as far as the housing market is concerned, but hey, let's first bring in our sponsor. And our sponsor is the same sponsor that sponsored us for last year's forecast, and also almost always sponsors and brings us in for the very, very first forecast of the season that is done at hotels and in-house, and that's JJ Mazzo and the Mazzo Group from Cross Country Mortgage. And JJ Mazzo is an executive vice president. He is the CCM #1 retail lender nationwide, and that's Cross Country Mortgage. Scotsman Guide, nationally ranked top 200 mortgage originators. He's been in the business for a super long time, and boy, is he knowledgeable. You want to plug into him because he is a bundle of energy. And he has over 25 years experience with $2 billion in home loan fundings. And they're America's #1 non-QM mortgage lender. And Cross Country Mortgage has solutions for self-employed borrowers, gig workers, investors, or foreign nationals. There's so much they could do. I don't even know what a DSCR loan is, but they have their hands on every kind of product. DSCR loans, bank statement loans, I-10 loans, foreign national loans, 1099 mortgages, asset qualifier mortgages, and full doc loans. They do it all. And so JJ Mazzo, he has the original same as cash $1,000 per day closing guarantee. So you're going to close on time, or he's going to put his money where his mouth is. He has deposit protection for up to $100,000, pre-approval promise to the seller that they have a loan in place with a $5,000 guarantee. So he's putting his money where his mouth is, and you can contact him at 877-237-9694. That's 877-237-9694. They have all loans are processed in-house, allowing you to close in as little as 10 days, same as cash. And they're here to service you 7 days per work. It's JJ Mazzo and the Mazzo Group. You can contact them at support@mazzogroup.com. Thanks, JJ. You can also take a little snippet of that QR code and get there right away to visit their website. So thanks, JJ, for your continued support of these forecasts. And so let's get right back into the housing market. And the housing market follows the normal seasons. The normal seasons are spring is the best, and then it's followed by the summer. Now, spring is the most activity. Most homes come on the market during the spring. May is typically the #1 month for the number of homes coming on the market. And between April and the end of May is where demand peaks. And then we get into summer. That's where things close, but we don't have as much demand. We have inventories that rise. And then it's followed by the fall market. And then the next lowest market is the winter market. But there are 5 seasons. And the 5th season is the holiday season. And the holiday season is where we are right now. And the holiday season is where supplies plunge and demand plunges. But since rates have gone up like crazy, demand has not really, it's been really low. So it doesn't plunge as much. It does go down, but it doesn't plunge as fast as supply plunges. So what happens during the holiday market, and specifically in December, is we have supplies really coming down and demand not coming down as fast, so that the market actually feels hotter as December rolls on, which is not what people are accustomed to feeling, but that is exactly what's happened with this higher mortgage rate environment. So expect it'll kick off the new year with a hotter market to start, and then it'll only get hotter as January heats up and we get towards the Super Bowl and everybody says greatest time of the year to purchase, and that's called the winter market. It starts in where, not a lot of homes come on the market, but demand really comes up and the market heats up. So we have two opposite economic forces that line up in favor of sellers and buyers columns, and they're pulling on each other. One is supply scarcity, that favors sellers, and the other one is affordability crisis, which favors buyers. And what's happened this year is we've had supply scarcity diminish. It's dwindled a bit because we've had more supply come on. And so the affordability crisis got worse, and buyers really pulled back this year. They were pulling like crazy. They were pulling, and we saw that that the market really slowed. And then we got to September, we got interest rates all the way down to 6.1%. And we were below 6.5% for 42 days, and the affordability crisis waned. It got better, and sellers started to pull back. So, but we got back, and rates rose again higher in October with that initial jobs Friday report, which made rates spike, and then they spiked further with the presidential election. We got above 7% interest rates, and once again, so buyers were pulling back. And so we have this low inventory, and this low inventory, it is low. It has remained low. It still is low. Everybody's comparing it to 2019. At the end of 2019, it was low. We had a low inventory back then. And that's what people are going, yeah, look, it's like back to 2019 levels. Big whoop. Because here's the issue. The issue is, this is courtesy of National Association of Realtors, goes back to 1982, and this is the total housing inventory. And you see that supply glut? We could see it in the fall of 2005, and that first Himalaya that's really tall is actually 2006. Then 2007, 2008, it was stuck at 4 million homes, which was way too many homes in the market. And a lot of people upside down in their houses. They had no-look loans. They did no down payments. They couldn't afford their house. They had these severely adjusting rate mortgages on them, and their payments were ballooning. We have no products like that at all. We have nothing that even resembles it. And this is why you should know that we are not going to have plunging prices, because on the right-hand side is supply scarcity problem that we talked about. We don't have enough homes on the market. Yes, we have way more homes on the market than the start of the year, and we're at the highest point as far as right now compared to the last time we were here was about in 2020, and some markets are back to 2019 levels. But at the start of 2020, January 2020, prior to COVID, it was the lowest January start, because each of those Himalayas is a year. It was the lowest January start going back to 1982, when we had a lot fewer households. And yet we had so few homes on the market in January of 2020, and we haven't even made our way back. We are not going to, we're going to start off 2025 with fewer homes than January 2020. So the supply scarcity absolutely continues. And so we will not get this big crash in prices, even if we get more homes on the market, because it will not be anything close to what we had during and prior to the Great Recession. And this just shows you Orange County, how many markets, this is the only market that we have where we have inventory levels for the market that specifically show you where we were prior to COVID. And you could see back in way prior to COVID and during the Great Recession, you could see that Himalaya in 2006, we got to 16,000 homes. And in 2007, it got to 18,000 homes. And right now today, it is dropping under 3,000 homes on the market versus 18,000 in 2007. You need a lot of homes on the market for inventories to crater. This just shows you we're not even close to anything like that at all. And that's just one of the markets. Now, this is the United States total inventory year over year, and you can actually see that the purple line, yes, it is higher than where we were back in 2021, 22, and 23. That's the purple line. But it's nowhere close to where it was the 3-year average prior to COVID. Last year, it was 16% less for the United States. You could see, though, that prior to COVID, we're getting there. We're making our way there, but we're not quite there yet. And that's even prior to COVID, when things were more normal. And you could say, this is Southern California. I'm showing you Southern California. Last Thursday, December 5th, we were at 30,000, a little over 30,000 homes in the market. It had come down 2,000 homes, the biggest drop of the year. And that's the holidays, down 6% in a 2-week period of time. And last year at this same time, that's the blue line, was at 22,543, which is 25% less than where we are today. So there are a lot more homes on the market. The 3-year average prior to COVID is close to 36,000 homes. That's the green line. 2017, 18, and 19, that's the 3-year average. That's a lot higher than where we are right now today in Southern California. Haven't even made it to pre-COVID levels. There are some markets that have, but not in SoCal and overall not in the United States. And this is where there are different peaks for different markets. Some are between July and September, and others are between August and the end of September. And that's pretty much where you're going to see most peaks in the inventory, and then it comes down for the remainder of the year. But it just depends upon the market of where it's at. Now, what's happened since 2022 is the peak has been postponed. The peak actually has been occurring later. It's been happening closer to October or November, and that is because of just unfavorable interest rate environments where interest rates have not come down like originally prognosticated or forecasted for years. And so there's a lot of homeowners that are hunkering down, staying put in their houses. This is one of those beautiful couples that is staying put in their house. They would like to move, and they're doing everything on their porch. They've done everything they're supposed to. They've built a family, and they're getting bigger, but they can't. They don't have enough room in their house. They're doing everything on their porch, and the reason they're not moving is because they enjoy a great rate across the United States. It's like close to 40% of all Americans that have a home own their home free and clear. The rest of them that have a mortgage, 77% have an interest rate at 5% or lower. 58% have an interest rate at 4% or lower, and 22% have an interest rate at 3% or lower. That precludes a lot of people from moving. They might be able to afford to, but they don't want to exchange it for a higher rate. They're happy with just staying put. And you could see this also in California. It's even bigger. It's 82% have an interest rate at 5% or lower, and 65% have an interest rate at 4% or lower, and 29% have an interest rate at 3% or lower. And you know what? Even though these rates are so low and there's so many people that are locked into these low rates, people are getting tired of waiting for rates to come down. They have been stuck above 6%. Last time that they were in the fives was in August of 2022 with duration. So it's been a long time since we were in the fives. And so we haven't been there for such a long time. That's 28 months ago. It's getting further and further back. Some people are just tired of waiting. And I've actually had people in my different presentations that have 3% or less interest rates. They've said, you know what, we're tired of waiting. We're actually going to look to move. And so that's the green shoot. And the green shoot is that more homes are coming on the market compared to last year. And this is true for across the United States. We have really good numbers for all of SoCal, which dials back to 2015. And you can actually see in here that it's up 17%, this purple line compared to the blue line last year. We're never going to see this blue line again. And that is way fewer homes than prior to COVID or during COVID. That is above that. You could actually see that the spaghetti at the top, that is the average on a month-to-month basis for each of those months, the number of homes placed on the market. And you can see the average is really tight. They're very, very similar. And the most come on the market in May. And you can see that we're still far below those numbers, but we're moving in the right direction. There's more for sale signs this year compared to last year, 17% more. And you could see that across the United States that there's a 1 year change in the active housing inventory for sale. From November 23 to November 24, it's up 31% in California and up 39% in Florida, up 24% in Texas. And this is something to look at. But what's more telling is this next one. And this is the shift between November 2019 to November 2024. While in California, it's still off by 14%. In Florida, it's up 15%. Compared to 2019. In Texas, it's up 17%. New Mexico, 18%. How about Tennessee? That's up 20%. And you can see Idaho up 8%, and that has a lot to do with Boise. So that's interesting, as well as the different markets. You have to know your markets. Some markets are having a harder time, but most markets are still below even where we were in 2019, not even close to Great Recession levels. That's for darn sure. But you could see it actually. These are areas like Florida, Texas, Colorado, Florida, again, there's a couple Texas, Louisiana. Below that zero are like LA, National San Diego, Rhode Island, Hartford. That type of thing. Now, this low supply is being matched against low demand. During and prior to the Great Recession, it was a high supply being matched against low demand. But now we have low supply matched up against low demand. And what we found is that we are very interest rate sensitive, the real estate market is. And it's at the real estate market's really at the mercy of rates. And when rates finally do come down, we'll see a thawing in the overall market. Because when we're stuck above 7%, people meet with their lenders and they can't afford to purchase. So they have to wait because it just doesn't make economic sense for them to pull the trigger and make a move. It does for some, but not for everybody. They're waiting for rates to come down. And especially millennials and Gen Zs, they can't wait for interest rates to come down further so they can actually play. And that's where what will enable them to actually purchase. Now, this is my most photographed slide in all my presentations, and that is because at these higher rates, you could see when we were at 8% last year, that's a $511,000 house that you can afford if you want $3,000 per month with just 20% down principal and interest. That's $511,000. This year in April, we were at $536,000. In September, we got down to 6%. Now we're at a $626,000 house that you can afford. And at 5.5%, you can see it's a $660,000 house that you can afford. It just opens up the door to affordability as interest rates fall. And you can see this in this chart that 5 is it. 5 is the magic number. And if at 8%, you could see, according to Moby, that 25 million households can afford a home at 8%. But at 5%, it's 35, at 5.5%, it's at 35 million homes. An extra 10 million households can purchase a home, which just opens up the floodgates, the number of buyers that can now participate. It will far outpace the number of homes coming on the market, which is why the market will be more insane down the road and will have multiple offers. And John Burns out of Newport Beach is a new homes analyst, talked to homeowners across the United States and asked them, what is the magic rate that it would get you to sell your home and buy a new one? And the magic rate turns out to be between 5 and 5.5%. 47% of everybody would consider making a move. If rates were under 3%, it's everybody, 100%. But we're stuck between 6.5% and 7%, and that's only 13% would consider making a move. So you can see as rates drop, what happens is the number of homeowners that are willing to actually sell their homes will actually increase. So you need lower rates for more people to play. And this is the United States Pending Home Sales Index. This is just an index. It's not the total number of home sales, but this just gives you an idea. You can see 2020, 23, and 2024, those two Himalayas on the right, it's just muted compared to prior Himalayas. Those are, each one of those is a year. And for Southern California, you could see interest rates. You could see interest rates where you could see where demand was really high because interest rates, that's the red line, were really low. They were below 3% where demand was really high. And now that interest rates are above 7% or between 6 and 7, that band, you could see in 2023 and 2024 that demand has been muted. We need interest rates to come down to increase the number of pending sales activity. And that's the green shoot that we have. A green shoot, another one that we saw is that with interest rates getting better in September and interest rates being better year over year since September and actually into August, we've actually recently seen a bump in demand pending sales index. The pending sales index for the first time is actually higher this year compared to last year. And we actually saw that in October, closed sales were higher this year compared to last year across the United States. And that was because of the higher the better interest rate environment that we had towards the end of August and into September. And this is for all of Southern California. You could see it December 5th, it was at 9,222. It did come down 5% within the last 2 weeks, not as fast as the inventory came down and plunged. And last year it was at 8,000 homes. That's 13% fewer. That's the blue line. You could see that's the green shoot. There are more pending sales right now than last year because of a better interest rate environment. Even though it's slightly, it's leading to more pending sales. And the 3-year average prior to COVID is that green line. That's 30% higher than where we are today. So there is room for this thing to grow as interest rates fall. You will see that this will grow closer to that green line. And this is where demand typically peaks between April and the end of May. And that's where it peaks. And that's where people like to do the most amount of activity, because once you get to the end of May, then it's summer. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of slowdowns. People go to the lake, they go to the river, they go to the ocean, they go on vacation, they do lots of fun stuff. They go on hikes, you name it, there's distractions. And it doesn't have to have kids. Everybody likes to play during the summer. So the speed of the market, that is, if you place your home on the market, when are you going to become a pending sell? That's what we care about. And across the United States, that's called months supply. And this is based upon closed sales. It's not my way of, I really don't like this kind of a way of doing month supply because there's a lag to it. And this is a read for month of October, but you can see where it's at. It's still at a relatively low number compared to where we were in the past. In that middle Himalaya is the Great Recession. So it's still pretty darned low. And I translated this to days versus the months that it had. In October, there was 126 days. And last year in October, there was 108 days, which was 12 days faster last year. So things are a little bit slower this year. So we're, hey, you know what? It's a little bit more sluggish, and buyers have a little bit more of an upper hand right now. And but it's still, if you see that green line, it's very close to the 3-year average prior to COVID, 2017, 18, and 19. So it's not like this is like way slower than where, like the Great Recession, nowhere near those kind of levels. In the Southern California expected market time on December 5th, last week, 98 days. It went down 2 days in a 2-week period of time. Last year was at 85 days. So that's the green line. It's a little bit better. And the 3-year average is 92 days. So, similar. And then for the rest of the year, where is it going to go? You can see that expected market time actually is the fastest March to the middle of April, and then it slows down a bit more as the year progresses. And where are we going to go from here? Like what happened in 2022 and 2023, it's just going to fall from here. So it kind of feels like a slight buyer's market where buyers have a little bit of the upper hand in negotiations because things have been languishing on the market a little bit longer. And in other markets, it feels balanced. You have to know your market. You have to know your price range. It's very important that you do the homework to figure that out. And this just shows you the difference in all the different markets from last year to this year. In LA, it was 92 last year, 98 days this year. In Orange County, 59 days last year, 70 days this year. Riverside, 92 to 117. San Bernardino, 100 to 117. San Diego, 67 to 84. Ventura, 60 to 70. Clark, which is Vegas, 100 to 118. Maricopa, which is Phoenix, 97 versus 120. So some of those markets feel really sluggish, those being Riverside, San Bernardino, Vegas, and Phoenix. And those will heat up after the new year and getting into February. And all markets will. So the market overview, I want everybody to know that of all the homes that are on the market right now, we're at 38.4%, this is courtesy of Altos Research, have reduced the asking price at least once. So there's a lot of price reductions in the marketplace right now. And I've actually proven that when you reduce the asking price, you net less. So you should have done more homework up front because you don't want to start out overpriced. That is ridiculous. And that's the moral to that story. Now, as far as please stop looking at median sales prices or reading it in the paper. It really doesn't. It just tells you which way the wind's blowing, but it doesn't really tell you exactly what's happening with values of homes. And towards the end of the year, different mix issues. You always get the seasonal high during June, July, during the summer, and then it starts to diminish over the fall. But this is Freddie Mac's house price index, way better than medians. House price indexes are way better than medians. And this is for the United States. They do all these different metros across the U.S. as well. It's up 4% year over year through October, and it's down 0.3% month over month. So while it's going down slightly, very little, it's actually up year over year. People should understand that. And since 2022, when the Fed started jacking up rates, and that's when the interest rates started to come down starting in July of 2022, not interest rates, values, and they came down quite a bit for the remainder of that year to until we got to January of 2023. But since it peaked in June of 2022, it's actually gone up 6.2% since that 2022 peak. So the overall arching theme is values are slowly rising when you consider it all. And this is another big reason why we're not going to see a crash in the housing stock, because the overall houses, all homeowners across the United States, it is the healthiest housing stock ever in U.S. history. It's been, since the Great Recession, it's been built on strong credit, great jobs, low fixed payments, record tappable equity, record equity rich means they have 50% plus equity, and a record number that own their homes free and clear. And as far as foreclosures are concerned, you could see with this is courtesy of Resi Club, that the number of foreclosures across the United States hasn't even made its way back to 2019 levels. So it's not even to pre-COVID levels, and we weren't really talking about it then. We're not even close to where it was prior to the Great Recession, which was elevated. And part of the issue is the national delinquency rate is stuck at decades lows. So there's not a lot of delinquency that's out there. And as far as 2/3 of all homeowners have at least 50% equity, that's including the people that have 50% plus equity. That's called equity rich, plus the people that own it free and clear. That is 2/3 of all homeowners that are out there. So there's not a lot of people that can get into a jam. So let's get into our forecast. The forecast looks like the following. I don't know what it looks like around that bend. It's a little foggy. I have this every year, and that's because nobody knows with certainty what is going to happen. I need everybody to understand that it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. Thank you, Yogi Berra. That is wise. And so my 2025 concerns are uncertainty. She's my number one concern almost always. Labor market too strong. That was my concern this year, and that's what it was. So that's also my concern for this coming up year. Fed too slow to cut and causes a recession. I could see that happening. They were a little bit late to finally doing it, and I hope that they don't do that twice, which there is a definite pathway for them to do that. And also rates remain high. That was my concern this year. It happened. So I actually changed the photo for rates remain high, hoping superstitious that they would be lower this coming up year so that more buyers can buy. That's what it's about. If there's more people that can get involved and more homeowners that can move, we're now allowing people to achieve what they want to do out there. And the new presidential administration policies are inflationary. And that's if they enacted them all at once, and which they're not going to do. But if they did do one big one or something like that, the overall market's going to overreact, and we're going to watch rates rise as a result of that. So we just have to be careful if that lines up during our springtime, which I don't think it will. But if it does, it could affect rates, which would affect our marketplace. And so here's the forecast for the United States. It's a low inventory to start the year between 2023 and 2020 start. And that's because 2020 start was the lowest ever. And then we've had lower, 2022 was the lowest start of all time. And then we've had low starts all these years. 2023 was a very low start. And 2024 is going to resemble more of 2020. Above or below 2020. So it's going to be very, very similar. And normal housing seasons, that spring is the best, then summer, then fall, then winter, then the holidays. And distress rises slightly, no wave. Hunkering down trend continues to ease, meaning more homes are going to come on the market. But there still will be off compared to the 3 years prior to COVID, but we're moving in the right direction. Luxury market strengthens by the spring, cools the second half of the year, which means that if you're a luxury owner and you're coming on the market, please come on the market during the first half of the year. You're automatically slower than the lower ranges because you're in the luxury ranges, which luxury is the top 10% of the market. Do yourself a big favor and place your home on the market during the first half of the year. That's when there is more demand and more activity and faster market times. Interest rates from 5 3/4 to 7.5%. And then there's 3 scenarios that will happen. One of them that will happen. One is, and this is not our base case. Our base case is scenario 2. Scenario 1 is economy continues to cool during the spring and rates drop below 6.5% with duration. Now that would be huge. Most likely not going to happen. Our base case is the most likely one to happen. This is the second most likely. Rise in inventory to slightly less than 2024 levels. Demand picks up due to lower rate environment, and bidding wars start in the spring. Now, then we'll have closed sales up between 12 to 16%. Home values rise between 4 to 7% year over year. Now, scenario 2 is our base case. This is economic numbers are stronger during the spring. Rates are stuck between 6.5 and 7% with duration. When you have it stuck in the spring, in the middle, I can't even say it, right smack in the middle of our spring, we'll get a rise in inventory up 10% year over year because we have more homes coming on the market. Demand picks up due to better rate environment. But bidding wars start in the spring, but you absolutely have to be priced right. And the reason you have to be priced right is because buyers will not be willing to stretch. Closed sales will now be up between 8 to 10%. This is where we think things are going to play. And home values rise between 2 to 5%. Now, there's a third scenario, and this is our asterisk case. Keep in mind our asterisk case hit for this year. Our asterisk case was that the Fed would finally make a move. come the fall. And that's when things slowed and they made a move, and they were a bit late to the party, lined up at the wrong time of the year. I don't think our asterisk case is going to hit this time around. I can't hit our asterisk case 2 times in a row, but you know what? We have it there for a reason. Now, if we have strong jobs, inflation risk rises, we have rates that rise above 7% with duration, kind of like this year where we stuck there from February practically through July. We'll have a rise in inventory up 18% over 2024, more seller competition, short spring. It will be busy for a minute, and then it will become more sluggish as the spring progresses, just like this year. Buyers unwilling to stretch. And you have closed sales up between flat to 2%, and then home values between flat and down 2%. So that's the asterisk case. So go to reportsonhousing.com to subscribe. Comes out every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks this thing comes out, and it gets emailed out to people, and there are a lot of ways to repurpose it. And there's links at the bottom of it every 2 weeks. You could subscribe. Lock in that $15 per month or $150 per year, because it's going to go up in 2025 because we've been at the same level since 2017, and costs are more. First month is free if you utilize the coupon code 2025. So I just want you to thank you for coming in and listening to our forecast for 2025. We'll see which scenario plays out, but I hope you enjoyed this. This is another forecast that comes right at the holidays, and then we're done because we're not going to do a housing debrief until January. We're taking the rest of the holidays off unless something major comes up, and then we'll come in. But we'll see you on the other side in 2025. I hope you have a fantastic holiday season and a fantastic time ringing in the new year, and we will see you in 2025.